Hello crafters and welcome to Papercrafts Peninsula online show brought to you by From Picture to Page and Beyond Papercraft Shows, which is our scrapbooking, mixed media art and paper crafting community. Now I'm your host Michelle Brown, Creative Director over at Picture to Page, and I'm so excited that you could join us here today. Now, Papercrafts Peninsula online show has a whole heap of demonstrations and videos for you. So for all the details, head over to our website from picturetopageandbeyond.com.au, where you can see all the sessions that are going on. You can see all the links to our retailers and guest artists, and of course, catch up with them on their socials as well. Now, while you're over there, make sure you're on our email list so we can let you know everything that's coming up, and of course, send out the dates for our 2021 shows as soon as we've got all of that organised. Now, whether you're watching us here live on Facebook or a replay on Facebook or on YouTube, we would love to know that you're there. So pop in the comments, say hello, of course, ask any questions as we go, and we really look forward to sharing this with you today. Now, we've got Peter P. Crafts online with Eclectic Images and Cathy. Hello, Cathy.
Hello, Michelle, and hello, everyone. Welcome. This is my first Peninsula show, so this is a bit exciting.
It is. And look, the Peninsula show is very new to the Picture to Page family, last year being our very first one. And it was quite a small show, so it's nice to be able to expand it a little bit this year.
Yes. So I'm very happy to be involved and very excited about what we've got planned for the next 2 days. So we've got the demonstration that you're going to see this morning, but we've also got 2 other videos that are going up on our YouTube channel. Lots for people to look at. So the one we're doing today is using our script brush words and just showing some different ways of using them, which is a bit exciting. These words were used at the Bendigo show at the start of the year, and people said, "Can we have these as stamps?" So we've got the first 3 are out, and I thought people need to see some of the different things that you can do with them. So that's our demo today. And then our 2 other videos that we've got going up, again, are ones that have come around from discussions with all the shows that we've been doing, particularly the Sandown one where we were using the ladies. Mm-hmm. So our first one is a makeup lesson. So the makeup lesson is for us, mm-hmm. but I'm using our stamp of Ashley as the model.
What a great idea.
Yeah, so I'm talking about what makeup we use on ourselves, but then showing it on the stamp. So you can see a way of doing a nice soft makeup or an evening makeup on Ashley, but also pick up some hints for yourself as well. So that's a video with a difference. And then we've also got some Christmas ones with Miranda. So I've done her just in some Christmassy colours, and then I've done another one with her where I face paint her with one of the when I do face painting for Christmas, one of the very popular ones is doing them as a deer. Oh. So I've done Miranda with a deer face paint. Which is really sweet. So that's our 2 clips to go up. Mm-hmm. And as I said, we've got our brush words for this morning.
Yeah, excellent. I'm so looking forward to it because, like you said, sometimes we get word stamps and we really only think of the use for that word. We don't necessarily think of different techniques to use with them.
Yes, and you can use them one thing that I haven't done is just using them just very softly as just a background pattern, because that works really well as well. Mm-hmm. So each of the word sets has the big brush word and then has several smaller, I'm talking with my hands then realising it doesn't show in the camera, smaller words that go with it in similar fonts that you can use along with the word. So you can make up a background pattern and just stamp it, or, as I've done show in this video, you can use them as a feature.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, will we jump right in?
Okay, sounds good.
Fantastic. Let's go.
Hi, I'm Cathy from Eclectic Images, and welcome to another crafting session with some of our great stamps. So the ones I'm going to be featuring today is some of our new brush words. Some of these were used in a class earlier in 2020 and were very popular. So we've released 3 of them as stamp sets, and we'll be working on doing some more into early next year. So the ones that we've got so far is Wish, Believe and Dreams. So that's the sets. So each one has a brush word plus some extra little words that can go with it in different fonts. And the dream we've done with an extra S, so you can have just things like dream big, or you can have let your dream soar by putting the S on the end of it. So try to make them versatile little sets. So they can be used as background stamps, they can be used as a feature stamp on the card, or just as your greeting on the card. So we're going to play with those. We'll be using our Catherine Pooler inks today, some from the Life of the Party series, a few neutral colours and some from the Carnival series. We'll also be doing some embossing with some of the Ranger colours, some copper and some marigold. And I'll also be using some of the Pentel brush markers and also a Zig glue pen. So we're trying to do a whole heap in this one. Let's have a play, see how we go. So one of the first things that you can do is just to stamp in something like a soft grey, like the Twilight, and create a shadow for your word. Let's stamp it so that you can see what I'm doing. Okay. Now you can see stamping it in a soft colour like that, you could really make great background effects with it. But what we're going to do here is now ink this up with some different colours. So let's start off with some, what have we got here? Tiki Torch, some orangey tones. We'll go into some Party Dress. Now by starting off with a, by making sure you don't go from light to dark, dark to light inks. So either using inks that are similar tonings or put your lighter colours on first and then work through to your darker colours, just so you don't contaminate your ink pads. So now we can position that almost over the top of our grey, but just offset it slightly, and our grey will become a shadow. And you can see that great effect with doing the multicolour inking on it. I mean, that is just so cool. Now we could also come in with something, if we wanted to make it stand out more, we could come in with something like our Pentel Brush Pen and just very gently add a little bit of extra outline to some of the letters. Just to firm up that shadow look. So with this brush pen, you can get quite a strong line if you put more pressure on, or you can go really light and get a really fine line with it. If you find something like that that's a brush marker is a little bit too difficult to handle because it does go from fine to stronger, you could use something like the Zig Artist Sketch Pen, which is just a set nib size. I quite like the brush pen where I can go from a fine, let's just do it on the page, where you can go from a very fine line to putting more pressure on and then back to a fine line again. I like the effects I can get with that. But for something like this where we're doing shadowing, sometimes something a little bit more stable is a bit easier. So just a fine liner pen, something like the Zig one. So that just builds out a little bit more shadow effect to our letters. It's a really cool and very easy look to create a lovely feature of the word. Okay, so now I'm going to rattle through about 4 or 5 different techniques with this one. Our next one, we're going to stamp Believe, and again I'm going to do it in a soft grey. Now I'm going to stamp it twice, once on this card and give that a moment to dry. Then I'm going to stamp it again. This time I'll stamp off, I want it really soft because I'm going to letter over the top of it. So I'm going to stamp off on my scrap once and then stamp onto the card. So we've got it very, very soft. Okay, now on this, the first one that I did, I'm now going to go over that with the Zig glue pen. So I'll just give that a little bit of a squeeze, make sure I've got a bit of glue rolling, and yes I have. Now what I'm going to do is let this glue sit here for a bit and go tacky, and then we're going to put some foil over the top. So if I wanted to, I could have stamped it in a stronger ink and just add a few little bits of glue so the foil just comes in as smaller highlights. Or as I'm doing here, I can actually cover the whole word with the glue. I'm trying to just push on the ball roller when I'm on the thicker parts of the letters and then just drag it out to the finer part so I don't end up with everything being thick. I just check, I can look across the light to check that I've covered everywhere. That looks a little bit light on there. Now this glue starts off with a bluey tone, and then as it dries it will go clear. If we stick our bits together, like if we're using this to stick card together or stick a die cut down, if we stick straight away it will be a permanent stick, but if we let it go till it dries clear it becomes a tacky glue. So that means we can use it for foil, flock, things like that, loose glitter. So again, squeeze when I've got it on the thicker parts and then just drag it up where it's the finer bits. Drag up there and across. Last letter. So I'm going to have to let this one sit for a bit, so we'll go back and play with our first one. Okay, let that sit for a moment. Okay, now our first believe now. So this one we can now use something like our brush markers, and I will have my fine water brush on the go as well. So what I'm going to do is actually just hand letter. And I will have to turn this around and work upside down, sorry. So I'm going to just go over with my Pentel brush pens, and as I put more pressure on I'll get more width, and then as I'm lifting up I can get it going finer by having less pressure on, and then put a bit more pressure on as I go down. So I'm going to go into a little bit of the area where I want the next colour to be so that I can slightly overlap my colours. So a bit more pressure. So this is a great way of actually practicing your brush lettering, or if you find that you're not confident to letter on your own, this is a way of actually doing hand lettering but having a guide to follow. So now I'll just get my water brush and just tease between those two colours so that we get that a really nice soft blend happening there. Now I want to take the orange a bit into the E so that I can then blend the pink into it. It looks really nice rather than just having the letters, each letter a different colour. It looks really lovely to have the colours blending in together. And these brush pens have got such lovely bold colours. So again, I've gone a little bit into the body of the letter there where I want to blend my next colour. And because they're so water soluble, I can just go back to this one and just softly blend that orange into the pink. So now let's pick up some blue. Now I could either let it, the trail of the E going into the B goes over the top of the blue, or if I go over the top of that, it'll make it go underneath the blue. So sweep down, and then less pressure as we go up. And I'll just use my water brush just to blend those two together. Just clean my water brush if I'm picking up too much of one colour. So I can blend back from the pink back into the blue. There we go. Now if I'm like when you're doing something like this and I'm doing it slowly and really watching what I'm doing, I'm tending to get some of my lines are a bit ragged. So I can always come in with my brush and just go over that a few times until I've got my lines nice and smooth. So just turning the card around until you've got it at an angle that's comfortable for you to get a nice smooth line. I think this is the one bit where doing this sort of lettering is actually a bit tricky because you're so nervous about trying to follow the lines that it can actually lose some of the spontaneity of lettering and make you a little bit more conscious. When you're just lettering yourself, your pen will just flow, but that takes a little bit of practice. So this is a great way to start getting your confidence, but it's not the only way of doing lettering. So do also have a try with something like this brush pens of just lettering on its own without a guide, because that's really good practice as well. Now I'm going to be careful. I've got my yellow pen here and I've already put green on that letter. So I'm going to just do some yellow bits and not touch it to the green, because I really don't want to get green all over my yellow pen. So I'm putting in the yellow, and then I'll use my water brush to mix those ones together. So just clean my brush, and then I can blend back from that yellow into the green and get that lovely and soft. And then we're back to yellow and orange, which is where we started. So as you get a little bit more confidence, you'll find you can just flow with the lettering more, and you'll actually find then that it does go smoother. The more hesitant you are, the harder it is to get your lines smooth. Now what was my next colour? Oh, pink. And lift up to a nice fine line to finish. Okay, let's just get my water brush in there for the last little bit. And I can turn it around so you can have a little bit more of a look. So again, very pretty, but again, if you don't want to try hand lettering, just go back to this one where we've just inked it up. You could do the same with that stamp, just ink it up with different ink pads. Okay, now, has our glue dried yet? Just going to test it. It feels nice and tacky. So I'm just going to get some gold foil here. I'll just test a little bit first. Beautiful. Okay, let's lay it over and put a bit of pressure on. And then peel up. And I'll just go over and make sure I've got foil on all those bits that we want foiled. Wow, I don't know whether Matthew can catch the light on that, but that looks fabulous. I'm just going to tilt it till we try and get some of that. There it is, there's the shine. Wow. So you can imagine that with some beautiful background colour with it. And again, it can be a feature of your card, or it can just be the greeting at the bottom with some other picture with it. But that's so cool. Okay, now, got to think what's... I've got another bit of cotton blend cardstock here. So I'm working on the cotton blend cardstock so that I can actually add a bit of water to things and do some blending. So our next one, we're going to do a little bit of splashing out colour a bit. So let's ink up Dreams. And again, I'm going to ink up with some multiple colours. So don't forget, the Catherine Pooler inks, like the Kaleido colours and the Distress inks, are water reactive. And the same as the Pentel brush markers are water reactive. So once we put the inks on, if we do some water spritzing, we're going to get some nice bleeding happening. Okay, what colour should we use? Let's go for some green. Now remember, Catherine Pooler inks, you only just need to touch the ink pad to the stamp. You do not need to put any pressure on. And we'll go into a little bit of something borrowed. Now I've only just re-inked that one, so it's quite vibrant. Now I'm going to give my bit of a card a spritz with water. In fact, we'll give it a spritz on the back too, which will stop it curling quite so much. Then I'm going to give my stamp a spritz and pop it down, and we should get lots of bleeding. And if we don't get enough, we'll get our foofer and actually splash it out and get a bit more. I think we want some more at that side. We might even put a little bit more of a spritz of water on there. So you can use your foofer, which will give you splashes of colour, or you can just use your water spray, which will just give us a bit more softer blending of colour. But basically, we're getting colour going in all directions. Now we're just going to clean our stamp, because we want to be able to stamp over the top of this. And we'll also give this a bit of a dry with our heat gun. And it won't hurt to dry the back as well. Just checking if I've got any paper towel handy to give it a bit of an extra dry. Matthew's going, Matthew to the rescue. Flinging over the paper towel for me. Thank you. Now let's just hurry that along a little bit. It does take a bit of colour off, but because we'd already heat set some with the heat gun, we've still got plenty of colour there. So now let's ink up with our Midnight, our black. And I'm really gently tapping here because this one does stay in the stamps. So I want to make sure that I'm just stamping the word and not getting all the backing area. I don't want ink all over the place. That's the lightest of taps. Then we can line it up over the top of where we stamped it before. And of course, it doesn't need to be exact because our colours have gone everywhere. But I've still got a hint of where the letters were. Now, of course, you could leave it not too splashed out and leave it so there's just a little bit of colour around the letters, or you can splash it out a lot. Now, if I wanted to stamp the little S in there, I could just pop that on a separate block. Just come in with the same Midnight. I'm just going to support the block as I tap that on so that I get it very lightly. And the little tail, well, it can go either way, but the little tail usually just goes up like that. And then we can just join it on. So you can see that you can make it have it dream or make it into dreams. Cool. Okay, so before we go on to our last card, I just want to add some white highlights to this one using a white gel pen. So where we've shadowed on that side, my highlights are going to go in on the other side. And you can just add lines or a few little dots. And it's just going to add that extra 3D quality to the letters. So I'm just looking for nice areas that I can pop this in that's on the opposite side to where we've done the shadows. Sometimes just a line, particularly on a curve, is just nice. Other times it looks good to do a few little extra dots. There we go. So it just picks up those. So we've added shadows and the white just picks up on the highlights. Okay, let's move on to our last example. And for this one, we're going to actually build up a card. Now I'm going to do some embossing on this, and we're going to use the marigold and the copper embossing powders. So I'll have 2 bits of catching paper laid out, one for our marigold and one for our copper. And we're going to have to move along on this because I want to stamp and emboss several different sections. Okay, so let's stamp our word in the middle first. So I'm using Wish, so I'm inking that up. And before I do that, let me just get our embossing powders out ready. So what we're going to do is the method where you actually put 2 colours on as you're embossing. So we'll sprinkle one on first and then the second one on. Okay, so let's ink this up. So you want a fair bit of ink on your Versamark pad. Stamp him in the middle of the card there. Now we head over to our copper area, and I'm just going to lightly sprinkle so that we don't get the copper covering the whole word. So I get some areas on heavier, and of course you never quite have full control over something like this. Get my little brush and we'll just quickly tip that up, tap it on the back. Then we move over to the marigold area, and by putting it over fairly generously, that's going to just fill in the gaps. So we get this word that's covered in the 2 different colours. Now, I'm not going to put those embossing powders away for the moment, so I'm going to be very careful with my heat gun and actually point it away from where those embossing powders are. And do a little bit of heating from behind if you need to. Helps to warm the card up and stop the card from warping. And there she goes. Okay, turn the heat gun off and just let that cool for a little bit. That was a hard one for Matthew to keep going with the camera work, wasn't it? Woo, just wave it around the place. Okay, now we're going to cover that with a mask. I've just got my cleaning cloth here as well, because you can also, you'll see there's a fair bit of mica in that marigold. So we've got a fair bit of mica on the background. So let's just wipe that clear. And we'll also give it a little wipe with our anti-static pad, if mine's right here. There it is. Because we're going to be getting the card a little bit warm, I don't want embossing powder sticking to everywhere where we don't want it. So let's just do a little bit of that. Okay, now we're going to cover the wish with a mask. And I've cut the mask out fairly generously around the word because I really do want a gap between that and my next stamped image. So let's just lay that over the top. It's just been stamped on a sticky note and cut out. And then our next image we're going to use is our Mandala Floral. So again, we're going to emboss it. So let's ink it up thoroughly with our Versamark. Nice big press around. We've got to get past that mask and I want a nice image of it. So good press all the way around. And then same thing, let's put some copper on. Try not to be quite so enthusiastic, Cathy. Okay, let's tip that one off. And then pop our marigold on. Shake it down the card. Good thump on the back. And I'm just going to have a little bit of a look, see that I haven't got powder where I don't want it. And then we're going to heat that. Let's pop our stamps to one side. And again, I'll be heating away from my embossing powders. Okay. Now, Matthew, I'm going to wave it around. Cool it down a bit. That was nice, giving a bit of warning, wasn't it? Okay, now we're going to stamp one more stamp in. So again, we're going to use a mask. So this time I'm masking the whole mandala. And we're going to grab our leaf swirl, which I've got hiding somewhere here. Leaf swirl, and we'll stamp that out both ends. So let's ink it up. And we'll stamp out one side. And then quickly ink and stamp out the other side. Now let's get our embossing powders on. Because I've got a fair bit of marigold towards the centre there, I think I'll have more copper on these ones with just a little bit of marigold in there. Tip it off. Give it a good tap on the back. Okay. Oh, that's going to look really nice swirling out from there. Okay, let's do our heating again. Nearly there. So of course the look's going to change depending on how much of each colour you use. I've got a fair bit of copper on mine, which I think is going to go really well with the ink colours that I've chosen. But you could also choose to have more of the marigold if you're wanting a lighter look to your embossing. Rightio, let's have a look at that. So you can see by masking, having that mask going a bit bigger than the actual word wish, it's given us a good space around the word. So let's put our embossing powders to one side and then we'll start doing our inking. So I'm going to be using the Aquatini and the Something Borrowed, which are from the, they're all Catherine Pooler inks. These are from the Life of the Party set, and All That Jazz and Suede Shoes are from the Carnival set. So we'll start with the lighter colours, and I'm going to use a fair bit of the Aquatini on the inside area and then build out to darker colours as we go out. So let's pick up a number 10 brush. Now I'm wanting to put a fair bit of ink on, so I don't mind that I don't have to be subtle. I don't have to work in from the edges. I can just pounce this on. Now by having the lighter colour in the middle, it's going to have the wish as a focal point. But I will bring it out just a couple of points so that the other colours have got somewhere to blend into. You can see I'm not worrying about doing any nice blending. I want lots of colour on here. Okay, let's come in with Something Borrowed, which is a fantastic blue. It's just such a blue. That makes sense, a blue. Okay, let's bring this one in. And you start to see already that even though we're just blobbing the colour on, as we overlap the Aquatini, the blending just starts to happen. Okay. So you can see how these words can be used as just a side greeting on the card, or how you can actually make that the focal point of your card. So I hope you can see how you can use these words in your card making. And as I said before, we've got the 3 at the moment, and we're going to be building out and adding some more to the series over the next couple of stamp releases. Now another way we could apply the ink, let's move into some of the deeper colours. We'll move into All That Jazz. So we could keep going with our brush with All That Jazz. Now of course this works best if you've got a fairly new ink pad or a fairly recently inked one, so you've got plenty of ink to work with. This is also where you could use your little spongy daubers. So they can be a great way of getting on some rich colour as well. Or if you've got the sponging blocks that we used to have, they're excellent for getting a lot of colour on as well. Do find that I can get lines with the sponging blocks, which I don't tend to get as much with the brushes. So I'm just going to give that a bit of a smudge. But with this sort of a card, that's not going to matter much because we're putting on so much colour. The colours will blend together and those lines should go away. So let's grab another little dauber and add in. So now I'm using the suede shoes, which is our richer colour. And of course, to finish this card off, we could add in some of the words from the set, which we could either emboss those. We'd have to really make sure that all this lovely ink was dry before we started doing any embossing. Or I can add some background stamping, which I think is what I'd like to do, and that's, I'll use the smaller mandala out of this set. I'm getting a few blobs there, so let's just come in with a brush. Back to the dauber. I'm trying to rush it, so I'm wanting to build up the colour really quickly, just so we don't go too over time on this one. But can you see how those colours are just working so beautifully together? But our wish is really just glowing in the middle there. So now I'm just going to grab the smaller mandala, which I've already got loaded onto a block here, and the blue suede shoes, and we're just going to stamp this one in the background. Which will just fill this card out nicely. So I'm letting those circles overlap a bit, just so that I just fill in all that background area. Okay, now our last stage is just to get our cloth, which I've got on my lap here, and just give this a little bit of a buff, and that will just bring back that shine to the embossing powder. Just lifts the inks off a little bit where they've just made it a little bit dull. And how beautiful is that? So that's us using our wish as a feature piece. Let's move that down alongside some of our other samples. So we've got our wish, we've got our foiled believe, and our written with the markers on the stamp, our watercoloured one, and our one where we've actually inked the stamp and added in the shadow and the highlights. So that just hopefully gives you some ideas of how you can use these gorgeous word sets. Hope you have some fun with them, and hit our subscribe button on YouTube and you'll get notified when we load up new videos, and we'll be back to see you again soon. Thanks for watching.
Well, hello and welcome back. Now, unfortunately, we have lost Cathy, but I'm so pleased that she could share that video with us. And wasn't that fantastic? What some fantastic ideas of how to use our word stamps. I think sometimes we just think of it as one solid colour and just one way and something, you know, that sits on top or is a greeting. But what a fantastic idea to be able to blend your colours, to add foil, to then stamp around it, to emboss, just so many different ways. So we might try just one more time to see if we can get on Cathy. Otherwise, we'll just need to wrap. And unfortunately, it looks like the internet connection between Melbourne and Ballarat is not where it needs to be today. So unfortunately, we can't get Cathy back. We must have used all of our internet goodness up at the start. But as Cathy mentioned at the start, she's got a couple more YouTube videos coming out. So head over to the Eclectic Images YouTube page. Make sure you subscribe and you'll get those other videos coming up soon. And I love the idea of using her face stamps to practice our own makeup techniques. What a great idea. Now, the other thing was that she wanted me to mention was the Eclectic Images special offer for today and tomorrow. So if you spend $40 on the Eclectic Images website, you will get a special gift bag to the value of $20 as well. And I know that's been mentioned on the Eclectic Images Facebook page, so that's probably the best place to head for more details. So thank you all so much for joining us today. I know Cathy will be there in the comments as well. So if you do have any other questions, this video, of course, go back and watch the replay or pop your question in the comments and Cathy will definitely get back on. But I really do encourage you to pull out some of those word stamps or look at those really versatile sets that Cathy and Eclectic Images have come up with and look at other ways of doing it. So adding colour, adding embossing and using some of those other techniques to create some spectacular results. So I hope you've enjoyed this P2P Craft Presents Eclectic Images today. Of course, all the details and the replays are over at our website from picture to page and beyond.com.au. Make sure you're on our mailing list, but of course it doesn't matter what time you're here watching us, whether it was live or on a replay. Hop into the comments, say hello, let you know, share if you've let us know if you've got any questions and share the video with us, and of course continue the fun over at the Papercraft Posse group if you have a go with this technique. So this is Michelle signing off. I hope you have a crafty day.